A special needs girl is inappropriately touching me. I can't do anything. My grammar is pretty shitty, so I apologize if something in this text is confusing to read. I am 17, have been going to a program called BOSES, which is basically a program to do things that interests you, and you get a grade for it. I've been in said program since September 7th, and since then I've been inappropriately catcalled, touched, had my personal space invaded, and a destroyed reputation by a special needs girl, we'll call her A. I first met A on the first day of BOSES. We were doing a sketching clothes for the first day so the teacher could find out about our fashion type or something along those lines. While I was drawing my clothes, I heard her mention me to her aide. I thought at first she was talking about someone else in the program. There was 10 students including her and me. After a few minutes, she finally came up to me and began talking to me about my drawing. I tried to be simple and bland towards her, as I was too focused on designing my clothes. But the more I respond to her, the more she got closer and closer towards me. It got to the point where me and her were touching shoulders. After what seemed like hours, we had to go to the computer room to do a Google Slides presentation assignment. Me being the introverted kid I am, I decided to sit all the way in the back, and who decides to sit next to me? A, of course. It didn't help that she was asking me questions on the most basic stuff ever. How to move images, how to change the font, how to add a photo. Like, ma'am, you have an aide, ask her. But finally, after 30 minutes of her asking me questions, it was her time to board the bus back to her school. I thought to myself, man, this day was not good, it gonna get better. But was I wrong? The next day we went back to the computers. I was doing the finishing touches on my project, when out of nowhere, A comes up from behind me, covers my eyes with her cold hands and goes, guess who? Mind you, her aide and another student saw her do this and didn't do a single thing about it. And for the next 3 hours she grabbed and rubbed my arms, legs, thigh, neck, back, and my ears, and copied my entire Google slide presentation image by image, color by color. Then we had to go present our projects. And our teacher, Ms. G, saw that our projects, she made a comment about how we could be related based on our projects. A started laughing and rubbing my back while staring at me. Mind you that everyone was staring at me. None of them did or say anything. Later into the class, she found she was being transferred into a different class, which I thought it was the end of it. After school, I told my dad and mom after what's been going on so far. My dad just told me to let the aide or the teacher take care of it, and that I'm doing a good thing. My mom, however, went ballistic. She wasn't yelling or anything, more of, I want to cause a problem in there type of mad. In the end, she told me to also tell the teacher and the aide. But I, unlike my mom, didn't want to cause problems. So I didn't do anything for 7 days. Those 7 days became the worst, humiliating, depressed time of my life. Every day before class ends she would come, grab and rub me into places I didn't want to be rubbed or grabbed in, and make flirtatious statements at me, which again, 9 other people saw this happening, including my teacher, and they didn't do jack. I even tried to do a help signal. Either no one understood it, or they just didn't care. After the 7th day, I had enough and grabbed her arm, placed it on the table. I then looked around and saw a dude and a girl giving me a dirty look like I was doing something wrong. I let go of her hand and she still continued to touch me. On the bus ride home, I decided enough is enough and email Ms. G, the counselor for BOSES, her aide, my school counselor, my mom, etc. What resulted is a 2 to 3 hour phone call in which, according to my mom, they tried to put the blame on me by telling my mom that I was probably doing something to indulge it, and I put my hands on her in a violent way. However, thanks to my counselor and my dad for comforting my mom so she doesn't beat some boss's ass, they made a deal for A to never enter my class or wait for me in the hall. Usually this is where the story ends. I live happy ever after living the rest of my 17-year-old life, but no, it gets worse. 2 weeks after I was walking out of the class when I saw A and her aide waiting for me, A tried to indulge in conversation with me, which I ignored to the best of my ability, and I guess she didn't like it very much, which then she grabbed the hood of my hoodie and yanked it towards her, in which I grabbed her hands and put it towards her waist and gave her aide a dirty look that reads, "Do your fucking job." I wasn't mad at it though. I got mad over some other earlier that day. I never saw her again until the last 2 days, where out of nowhere she comes into my room, and instead of kicking her out, Ms. G welcomes her in which of course she's sitting next to me, but no touch however, so thought she must have improved. But boy oh boy was I wrong. Yesterday, it was the first 15 minutes of class, we drawing poses for our models, in which A comes in with a box of stuff, probably something related to her class, and asked Ms. G where should she put it. And out of all the places she could have, she said to put it next to me. And if you think that was, she comes to me and goes, "What's up, honey baby pie," out loud for the whole class to hear. Not even 5 seconds later, she puts her neck on my shoulders and starts to hug me while she grabs one of my thighs, which the teacher saw and didn't do anything about it. It's not until I stared at her is when she decided to stop hugging me, and now here we are. Stuck in situation where I can't talk to my counselors cause they'll try to blame it on me. I can't tell my parents cause I don't want them to freak, and I most certainly can't tell my teacher, classmates to help, or to stop, cause they're gonna just ignore me and continue to pretend like nothing is going on. Now I come to Reddit asking for help, something I've never thought I would be doing. But I guess what's more trustworthy than strangers on the internet? Any help and support is acceptable, and thanks for reading my long-ass post. I got my mom into a $11,000 debt at a university that I don't attend. My mother, after I completed high school, wanted me to go off to university, but at the time, I lacked ambition and disappointed by my final high school results. With everything that went on in my life at the time, I decided to take a gap year. As a teenager, I really struggled with depression and social anxiety, and sometimes would get panic attacks in public. So when COVID hit, it helped, as bad as that sounds, because I didn't have to socialize as much. The following year, I got into university doing a course I didn't want to do, but the pressure from my mom, especially when she would say she worked so hard to put me through school and did it all for nothing, for me to be sitting in her house useless, that made me feel so guilty, so I went. Also, because of my results, I had to do a bridging course for a year, which I completed with success, so the following year, I guess that's where things took a turn. Right through high school, I would always voice out that I had serious social anxiety and deeply depressed and needed help, but always constantly ignored by my family. I got to the point where I was suicidal. Even my teacher noticed. There was even a day she took me home because she was worried and spoke to my mom about it. But nothing happened. So going to university, my mental health has just been deteriorating. So on my second year at uni, things went from online learning to on campus, which was so overwhelming I couldn't even focus. I was failing. I felt like I was going crazy, and no one would understand me because I don't even understand myself. So I dropped out, as in from last year. I don't attend my classes, I just sit in my dorm room and do nothing. When my mom calls to check on me, I just say I'm failing, or when she asks for my semester results, I just give her excuses or ignore her, for which pisses her off. Rightfully so. Whenever I need money, she sends it. Whenever she comes to the city, she stops by and visits. I've gotten so comfortable being in my room all day and feel guilty because overall she really is the best mom who deserves high-achieving, exceptional, and health kids. Currently, she owes the university $11,000 for a useless kid, and she doesn't even know it. I am taking online courses, and I have started my own e-commerce store. So hopefully this goes well, because I no longer want to be burden or disappointment to her. I cut into a funeral procession on the road to get onto the highway the other day. Okay, first off, when did funeral processions stop with the little flags on the cars? I grew up immediately able to recognize a funeral procession because there would be a line of cars driving really slowly, all with the little orange or black flags following the hearse. Like you immediately knew, and you immediately respected that, hey, this is part of a funeral, don't be a dick. But no, I guess they don't do that anymore. Or I'm in the South now, and maybe they just don't do that here. I'm driving home from work and decided to take this little side route to cut through 3 exits of traffic, then merge back on the highway. It usually saves me about 5 to 10 minutes, and so it's just a habit at this point. I turn onto the road that's going to take me back on the highway, and I see the car in front of me with hazards on, so I'm immediately like skirp and get over into the passing lane. Then I see the next car in front of them has their hazards on going really slow, and I'm like, well, that's weird. There must be something in the road. So I'm going a little slower but still going the speed limit. I look up the road and just see a long line of cars all with hazards on, and I don't know why funeral procession didn't cross my mind until I'm cutting back into the lane, 2 cars behind the hearse, to get back on the highway. I can only imagine what was going through everyone's head as I completely disrespectfully zipped through a funeral procession. But can we be real here? Why were there no flags? This was a couple days ago, and I still feel like a total dick about it.